We're reading here from one more time, just for the fun of it, from Fair Acres. It's written by Effie Leland Waller. She's 90 years old when she writes the book, and she's writing from a senior home. This copyrighted, the text was in 1999. So we're now gonna go into chapter 4. Note this is doing at Hermitage in Northern Virginia, which is a nonprofit organization just for the residences. Pros and cons, August the 7th. Last year, the ladies of the Drayton Garden Club started a nice project for Fair Acres Home. In an empty space around the fountain behind Main Hall, they put in a garden that would attract butterflies. They planted milkweed, asters, verbena, buddleia, cornflowers, and the butterflies came. Swallowtails, fritillaries, cabbage, whites, and monarchs. The butterflies seemed to love the spot, and we loved to sit among them and watch them through the huge picture window in the lobby. Yesterday, Mother Nature treated us to one of those benevolent August days, a welcome break in the heat. And some of us decided to spend an hour outside in the summer daylight after supper in the butterfly garden. Our nice Mr. Dwitler, the best of administrators, saw to it that comfortable benches were placed in the center near the fountain. There we sat, watching the lovely critters do their fluttering act. Talk turned to the old-fashioned flowers that we remembered growing up. Often the names they went by were so picturesque. I remember butter and eggs. Lords and ladies, Retta said. Emily added, oh, there was something called Quaker ladies. A shrub called Devil's Walking Stick made an impression on me, laughed Graham McKnight. I only had to touch that thorny stem once, and I never forgot that name. But my favorite plant was one that my mother had, something called Dutchman breeches. The flowers looked like tiny little plantains. This place reminds me of my garden from my grandmother, said Cora. It was quiet like this, and she grew some of the same flowers. She had what she called a pit, covered with glass, a cold frame, I guess, where she put some of her plants in the winter. Even in the coldest months, she always had fresh flowers for the house. Japonias mostly, now called camellias. They were trellises in an old well she had covered with Confederate jessamine vines. They were so peaceful. I loved visiting her house. Peaceful and cold, I'll bet, in winter, spoke up Graham. I remember visiting my grandparents and shivering when I put on my union suit in front of a trash burner. No furnace. Man, it was cold. And then when we'd come up in summer, we'd burn up. They had one big electric fan, and we'd move it from one room to another. Don't talk to me, Cora. You can have those good old days. Well, that started such a discussion that I wished for a tape recorder. Here are a few remarks that I remember. I'm with you, Graham. My grandmother had to wash clothes in a wringer washer. Mine didn't. She hired someone for that kind of work, said Emily. So, countered Graham, the outside help had the back baking job. Not everyone can drop the clothes in a machine and press a button today. Tell me that's not better. I know what you mean, said Esther. When I think about what I went through to get a permanent wave. They rolled my poor locks and hooked them up to this prehistoric electrical machine. And literally you could smell my hair burning. When my scalp started smoking, then they'd pull out the fan. I'd be a kinky-headed wreck when it was over. Now they do it in half the time with chemicals, cool chemicals, for half the price. Red and I joined in laughter as we recalled our own experiences with that machine. I know, admitted Cora, lots of things are better, but some big things are worse, like crime and traffic and noise and manners. Well, said Bill Nixon, there's a lot to be said for the slower, kinder, quieter ODs. But I can name you two things, just two things, that stop the argument in its track. Penicillin and air conditioning. Graham noted, but Bill, you'll have to add the telephone and the television. Most of us had to nod our heads at that. We are living better and longer and more comfortably. Still, I'm glad I was born early enough in this century to remember a more leisurely, and let's face it, a sweeter way of getting through the days. August the 8th. After our conversation about the good old days and good news days, I hunted up some doggerel verse I remember reading. Back in the mid-'80s, I think a couple of modern mistakes, well, in my humble opinion, lament. It's not a rumor, it's not a joke. They've gone and Pepsi'd up my Coke. I feel distressed and violated, someone should be annihilated. For messing around with the real thing, what they're teaching the world to sing is it make it sweeter or make it cloey, leaving an aftertaste annoying. Cut down on that lovely fizziness, anything to up the business. It needed fixin' is the words they've spoken. Here's what gets me, it wasn't broken. Two gems we had, so it seemed, Coca-Cola and AT&T. So what do we dummies do? Oh, brother, we mess up one and break up the other. Thank goodness so many people lamented about the change in Coca-Cola that the company had to get that old formula out of the safe again. This situation with telephone service, however, has continuing to get more and more confusion. I now get two bills instead of one, and each bill is several pages long. There's always some mysterious new fee, and it seems to this old soul the totals are always going up, never down. Oh me. August the 11th. Still, to my astonishment, I'm getting fan mail in response to my little books. 618 letters as of yesterday. Some of the letters are from men, and some of the men have sent me stories that I can't clean up enough to use. I don't want my mother rolling over in her grave any more than she already has to. I started scribbling in my diary and getting my jottings published. I had an amazing letter the other day from a lady in a far-off state, Ohio, Kansas. She said she lives in a retirement community, but her mother says she doesn't. Her mother, age 96, stays on the old place and refuses to go to any kind of home. My correspondent said, instead of my going to see her in a retirement home, she comes to see me. She says she wants to die under her own roof. I admire the older lady's determination. I just hope her roof holds up and her back steps and her legs. Later, Ruth had a good true story to tell today about the sale of her house when she was getting ready to come here. She said the for sale sign had only been up a few hours when Dr. Stevens, her physician, called her real estate and made an offer to buy the house. He told the realtor that he was ready to deal if Ruth would come down $15,000 on the price. Ruth said to her agent, you tell Dr. Stevens that I went to his office last month. He charged me $40 for the office visit, $15 for the vitamin shot, and I paid his bill without a single word of argument. Dr. Stevens got the message. The next day, they drew up a contract on the house at her asking price. August 13th, observed. I passed Harriet in the hall just as she was balling up her hometown newspaper to throw the paper away. Nothing in here for me, she said. I don't even read the obituaries anymore. They're all younger than I am. She walked to the wastebasket and threw the paper in resentfully. August the 15th. We have a few oddballs here. I suppose it is to be expected with a population ranging from 70 to 99 years. Well, we have one woman that's 102. I'm continually surprised by what some of them say and do today. Today I went to walk in the butterfly garden and I found Esther Pickett sitting on one of the benches, looking sad. What's the matter, Esther? I asked, sitting down beside her and rummaging in my handbag for a clean tissue. She nibbled into the tissue and brushed her fingers. Just something silly, she said, looking away from me. You wouldn't believe how silly. Well, try me. Well, to tell you the truth, Hattie, I was feeling sad about the chickens. Chickens? Yes, I just read a newspaper article about the ones that are being today born in those chicken factories. The chickens whose feet never touch the ground. We were quiet for a moment and I searched for a response. I suppose it's sad. They are raised on a wire, aren't they? Well, indeed they are. But I was in one of those factories years back, and about 1 million poor creatures squawking about 10 inches of space apiece and their feet on a wire floor. It killed me to think their feet would never feel the ground, not once. But Esther, I patted her hand, they don't know what they're missing if they've never experienced it. I know, but I'm still sad. You see, I used to visit my grandmother, and she always had such happy chickens. How do you know they were happy? Well, you could tell. They were fat, sassy, and each one strutted around like she owned the chicken yard. The darling little biddies had fun, scratching away. They had a stout house at the back of the chicken yard to go into at night, or when it rained or was cold. That's where the hen's nest sat. They knew that Grandma or I would be there on time, flinging out good food to them. So they would get fat and be good to eat, I said pointedly. But they didn't know that was coming. They ran around on the warm ground, pecking and cackling. I used to hate it when the cook could catch one and wring her neck, but at least the little bird had enjoyed her short life. The last word was a wail. I patted her hand again, and I made a few more consolating comments as I rose and moved on. With all the things we old people have to be sad about, it never occurred to me to grieve about the life of modern-day chickens. Oh, well, to each his own. I walked away shaking my head and nursing about the oddities of human nature. I decided it was time for a cup of coffee. Maybe I could find a little less distraught companion in the country store. Sure enough, when I got to that emporium just off our lobby, I saw Paul Chapin at one of the tiny tables, having coffee and a donut. I skipped lunch, he said, found I couldn't wait until supper. He hauled up his fried donut. Sit down and be sinful with me, Addie. So I did. There's something very comforting about Paul. Soon I was telling Paul, the comforting guy, about Esther shedding tears over the chicken's plate. He didn't laugh. Said, poor Esther, he said, and stirred his coffee reflectively. Hers must be a soft heart. That organ can be touched in the most surprising ways. He looked as if he were remembering something from long ago. I hoped he would tell it, but after a moment, he changed the subject. I did not press him. We share some of our memories here, but not all. We talked about many things, about the swimming pool. He promised to escort me on a walk one morning over the site to check the progress on the swimming pool. I will be the envy of some here if they see me on the arm of this distinguished and eligible widower. To some leaders here, any widower is eligible. I believe I can say with confidence, however, that Paul and I are quite comfortable with our uncomplicated friendship. He is truly kind man, and we enjoy one another's company. The end of chapter 4.